Hi everybody, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Rashelle.
And I'm Erin.
And today we wanted to break down a topic that's getting a little controversial and kind of dividing the field or making people think and chew on stuff. And that is that interpreting is just interpreting, regardless of the field, whether it's conference or legal. Education is getting a lot of traction as a specialization, and obviously healthcare. And people are saying that interpreting is interpreting, and no matter where you are, it's all the same. And I would have to say that is not the case.
Yep.
So we want to break that down a little bit.
Yeah. It is true. There are base skills that are kind of universal to interpreting regardless of your sector or area of specialization, whether it's the mode in which you're interpreting or memory recall skills, research skills. There's all sorts of obvious things like that you need to have as an interpreter regardless of where you're specializing or focusing your services. But when it comes to healthcare, and it's possible we might have a little bias, but a bias that's rooted in 21 years of specializing in healthcare interpreting. And so we're just in this brief video going to highlight a couple of things that jump off the page as being unique with interpreting in healthcare. So before we get into that, I just want to set up a little bit of an analogy and think about some of the other professions that are out there and how we can see that in those professions, yes, there are base skills, but you can also clearly identify that there's areas of specialization within that profession.
Right.
So for me as a trainer, as an educator, one of the things that comes to mind for me is teaching. Teaching is, there are base skills for teachers and for teaching. But if you think of a teacher who works in a kindergarten setting and the skills and the abilities, aptitudes that those individuals need at a kindergarten level, and contrast or compare that with skills for a teacher in a high school setting, the kindergarten teacher might not be able to pop into a high school teaching scenario, and vice versa. The high school teacher might not be able to just pop into a kindergarten room.
or want to.
Yeah, for a variety of different reasons.
One of the other things to think about too is we're doing these YouTube videos and you're going through certifications and trainings and initial trainings. Even the difference between teaching children and teaching adults has a specialization. So there's concepts, you're presenting things, you're going through exercises, you're evaluating, but the background behind those two things is very unique and different as well. So it's training, teaching, sharing knowledge, skills, and abilities, but the approach that you take is very unique and different there too.
Yeah, exactly. So let's bring this a little bit closer to the healthcare environment, and let's think about other professionals within healthcare. I like to use the example of nurses. You probably think of nursing as a one-size-fits-all profession, but then if you think about the nurses that you've interacted with or that you know and work with, a nurse who is successful as a professional in an emergency room situation might not be successful in a home health care situation. Nursing is nursing. There's certain base skills that are shared among all nurses, but the environment in which they perform their professional service changes dramatically from one area of specialization within healthcare to another. And so we can think about how that fits then and applies for professional interpreters. An interpreter who works in a court setting, in a conference setting, in international business setting, in healthcare and education, there's a lot of different goals, objectives, the patience that's required in one, the preparation that's required in another, the professional demeanor and engagement that's required. It all changes very much from one setting to another. So it might be that, yes, there are base skills shared among all professional interpreters, but the setting might be a unique factor that makes some professional interpreters fit better in one area, such as court, versus another area, such as healthcare.
Right. And one of the things that we're trying to do, especially as healthcare interpreters, is we're trying to make the money, we're trying to gain a career, we're trying to use this as a profession, not to be helpers, but to be professionals. And by specializing in an area, that's what allows you to do that. You have consistencies, you have efficiencies, you're familiar with the area. And so if you're jumping between legal interpreting and a factory job and insurance and education, you're never really going to gain the skill sets, the knowledge, the abilities to do everything. It doesn't work to be a jack of all trades. And so, yes, as we've been saying, There are comparable skill sets. However, just as there's vernacular and there's settings and there's environments, and by specializing, that's when you're value added.
Yep.
And that's when you get to turn a passion into a career, such as healthcare interpreting.
Yeah, and thinking about that value add, because you specialized in healthcare, you are able to more immediately provide and deliver those services. Think about the demands and the requirements of healthcare interpreting services. It's usually a luxury to get more than a day lead time in knowing what the particular assignment is going to entail.
Right.
Many times, and I can see interpreters' heads nodding out there, you get, a pager, some type of, communication that says, we need you at the PICU, we need you at rehab, we need you at whatever other department. And that's your advance notification. Healthcare interpreters can do that quick response because they have specialized in healthcare. So they are working in and walking around with that area of conceptual framework that makes them able to go immediately on demand into different situations without having the necessity for as much preparation and study and research and building terminology and vocabulary and glossary lists that other interpreter professionals, maybe in conference interpreting, that type of professional preparation for an assignment is one of the, unique aspects of interpreting in healthcare that we also wanted to highlight for this brief video.
Right. And specialization really is about exposure. And so the more exposure you have, the more specialized you become, the more efficient, the more effective, and the more value add, and the more desirable it will be to have a professional healthcare interpreter or any specialization in the room, because there really is a value add for everybody involved.
Yep. So whether you're thinking about finding your niche, your area of specialization as an interpreter, or whether you're thinking about, is interpreting one size fits all? Can I, just look up 1-800-interpreter and contract services for an interpreter? We hope this video has given you a couple of things to think about the unique aspect of interpreting in healthcare. Are there more? Yes. We'd love for you to continue this conversation in the comments section. So share with us your additional ideas on how healthcare interpreting is a unique sector within the broad framework of interpreting as a profession.
Right. So if you like the video, be sure to like it, to comment, to subscribe, to share across your social media platforms. If you don't like it, we want to hear that too. It's good to keep the conversation going. So thanks for your time today and have a great day.
Take care.